Hey, what is going on everybody, and welcome to Fantasia. For today, we're going to be jumping into another session of Epic 7. Now today, we have another account overview for you guys, the first one in 2020. In this video, I'm going to showcase all of my units, their gear, and their stats. So, without any further ado, let's go ahead and just jump right into this, shall we? Now, while I'm pulling all this stuff up, I do recommend that you guys check out the link to my Discord server in the description down below. Got a fantastic community of players of various different games, Epic 7 of course included, so we definitely love to have you stop by and say hi. And with that being said, let's go ahead and get started here. First thing, we have Holiday Yufine. Now, Holiday Yufine here, I really only use her for like countering Basars in Arena. I don't really draft her very often at all. Maybe in like lower rank RTAs if I don't feel like banning my opponent's Basar. But she's on a bunch of really bad spare gear. I could make her much better, but she's just holding spare gear, as you can see. 35 speed boots. Nothing too special here. Rockin' Champions Trophy acts kind of like a pseudo Dizzy, kind of nice sometimes. I bring her in to cleanse some debuffs, not necessarily always against Basars, but she's a decent opener for some comps. Alright, moving on here, we have Ken, and oh boy, I re-geared my Fire Ken, and I love it. I love it. Keeping his bulk from before, which is fairly nice, but bumping up his speed up to 206, right? It is really, really nice to have this. Now, I had to gimp his crit rate a little bit, but 85% for a bruiser like this is perfectly fine. He still does his job, 250 crit damage, which works perfectly with his HP scaling. Right, he still does a considerable amount of damage, but now because he's able to cycle his turns so much faster, he is a much more viable pick as a bruiser option RTA. So I've been testing him out and he's been working incredibly well, much better than what he was on before, which is about like 170 something speed. Alright, so moving on here, we have Lilias, one of my trusty knights that I rarely draft because I don't like playing with a bunch of tanky units. However, she is geared for the occasion. Now, I did change a little bit of her gear. She is rocking a little bit more defense now, I believe, and a little bit more speed. So not too shabby overall. She has a little bit of effectiveness built in just to provoke some of those pesky DPS units that are laying around randomly, but not enough to provoke anything that has 150 res. That is not her job in those types of comps. Alright, she is rocking Aureus though. It is pretty decent, unit to hold Aureus on. Sometimes I put Adamant on her, but lately I've been liking Adamant Shield on Falconer Kluri instead, because I do draft Kluri more often with other Aureus users. Alright, so moving on here, we have Kayron. Kayron has been serving me so well, and he's absolutely insane. None of his gears changed from the last video, but I know, of course, there's always a pair of new eyes on these, and yeah, got some pretty decent gear, pretty good roll. Like, this chest piece is, like, probably my best crit damage chest piece. So yeah, his ring can be improved, although I have trouble getting immunity right side gear. It's really hard. But the rest of the stuff is looking pretty solid. 100% crit rate. Obviously, you don't want to miss crits with him. He is very strong for taking out units, especially tanky ones. That's why I have Elia's knife on him. He is my go-to tank buster. So if I see people tanking up with like ML Kraus, Lilias, Falconer Kluris, things like that, I draft a Kayron and he cuts through them like butter. Alright, next up we have Lidica here, kind of changed up some of her gear here. She's not really meant to do much except control and lock down a specific unit on the opponent's team. Her speed is very low. I don't build her as a speed contester. I have one that I'll show later, of course. But she is here to be kind of a decent debuffer support unit. I don't ever draft her in serious matches or anything like that, but she's pretty fun to use in friendlies. I did boost up her crit chance, so she's sitting here at about 90%, which is good enough. And if she's attacking an Earth unit, of course, she's going to guarantee the crit. And yeah, she's just there as a debuffer, lock down some units. I tend to draft her into like Earth units, and she'll just lock down, like, for example, an Alencia or a Charles or something like that. Keep them out of my way while I deal with the other units. But yeah, fairly fun to use. Alright, next up we have Melissa. Melissa here, my go-to Rylet killer, and I re-geared her. She's looking pretty good right now. Okay, so currently on a bunch of free destruction gear. Now, why destruction? Ended up giving her a bunch of crit rate. She already has a really high base attack, right? So I didn't have to worry too much about stacking attack on her. But I wanted to give her this destruction set because it actually has a lot of crit chance that's built into these pieces that I rolled. And yeah, gave her speed boots. That's why her attack is below 4,000. Gave her speed boots. Took some stuff from Ken, right? So like this, I believe this necklace and these boots were both from Ken after I re-geared him. And she's incredible. At this speed here, at about like 170, 180, is enough for me to actually use a Lidica and a Rose. Either one of those two can actually push her above most Rylets, unless they're like 240, 250 Rylets, but it allows me to push up her before most Rylets, and then she'll just nuke them. So, you know, I don't have to rely on Oxlots per se to boost her up. She's running Oath Key just in case Rylet is running Moonlight Dreamblade, one of his most popular artifacts on him. So it just directly counters the Forced Artifact there, and we don't have to worry about it. Alright, next up we have one of my favorite units in the game, Researcher Carrot. So she is sitting here with a pretty decent stat spread. I don't think anything's changed from the last video, but she's rocking immunity. You don't want her to get debuffed. 206 speed, looking pretty nice. Fun to use as a kind of pseudo cleaver. Just have her, you know, go before the entire enemy team, right? You boost her up with someone like Rose. Rose has been my favorite attack buffer for her. Boost her up with Rose and have some support units that go after her to keep her alive. She's running Proof of Valor as well with her defensive stats and with her passive barrier. She's actually really good at surviving. It's really difficult to take her down unless you know what you're doing. But yeah, there she is. And next up we have Achates. So I actually swapped around some things on her. She no longer rocks immunity. Now that is something that I'm still a little on the fence about. However, the reason why she's not is because I need the pieces for other people, but I also never use Achates outside of Dark Corvus and General Purrgis in Guild War. So she's there really for that specific comp, and she definitely puts in work there. So keeping a pretty decent defensive stat spread, pretty good speed. I do like to have her cycle fairly often, so that's the reason why that's there. And yeah, she does her job perfectly fine. At 100 resistance, her effect res buff from her exclusive equipment actually brings her up to 150. So at that point, once you're cycling S3s and S2s, you're going to be safe from pretty much most regular units and their debuffs. Alright, so moving on here, we have Tamarinne, who I think had a few pieces swapped around. Again, she's on a bunch of really trash pieces, to be honest. She's used for PvE content, and pretty much only that. I don't use her in PvP at all. I used to use Iseria, but then I just had better options. After I got Oxlots, it's just so much more efficient to have a single Oxlots boost a unit rather than having to, you know, Iseria into Tamarinne, which takes up 2 units. She's currently running Idol's Cheer, this reason for expeditions and things like that, where she gets hit quite often, can boost up my DPS to cycle more turns, and actually helps with clearing some runs more consistently. So yeah, there we go. Alright, moving on, we have Luna. Yeah, Luna is such a strong unit. Absolutely love using her. Actually, I think I improved her crit damage a little bit. She's almost max crit damage. Max is 350, I think. So she's looking pretty good. Obviously, her attack could be higher, but she one-shots pretty much anything with a Soulburn S3. So I like to just Oxlots, boost her up, Soulburn her S3, nuke somebody, and then put some additional damage into a second unit. And I can do that because of this exclusive equipment here. I use the one that gives me an extra turn. So I go ahead, like I Soulburn S3, nuke down Charles, and then I, for instance, S1 into like a Seaside Bellona to deal quite a bit of damage. She's only on a +15 portrait. I don't ever really use her outside of Guild Wars, so there's no reason to give her anything much better than this. She already does her job very, very nicely, so no complaints there. Alright, moving on, we have Sigret, and Sigret here, fantastic Wyvern farmer. I think I swapped out a couple of gears. She's rocking a little bit less attack, and I think a little bit more crit damage. I don't remember. I think her overall damage output is a little lower. However, I've sped up my Wyvern runs considerably with my Karin build, so she's definitely helping pump out a lot more damage. So Sigret is not necessarily the sole nuking potential that I have on that comp. Alright, but yeah, this is their gear. It's not really great stuff. I don't like to I-90 any of this stuff here. There's no real point to it. I mean, some of these pieces are fairly good, don't get me wrong. I just don't feel like wasting resources on a PvE exclusive unit that I have here. Now, if I were to build her for RTA or something like that, I would definitely speed her up, like 200 speed. Try to get like 4,000 attack, 300 crit damage. That would be something quite nice. But for Wyvern purposes, this works. Alright, moving on here, we have Krau, one of the one of the more famous tanks from my Guild War videos that you guys do love watching. Yeah, he just never dies, right? As you can see, very strong defensive spread here. Effect res I love on him. He never gets debuffed. I know my HP is quite low for a Krau. Most people like to have him at 23,000, 24,000, especially because he's an Aureus user. However, I do really much enjoy, I very much appreciate having that effect res. I could gimp it easily, just switch out this effect res ring here, right? And get an HP main stat, you know, get effectiveness, or effect res and defense substats, but yeah, I love having the effect res way too much. Him not able to be controlled by the opponent, you know, getting provoked and things like that by a Lilias or a Falconer Kluri, it's very nice. He's running Aureus, plus 30 Aureus here for maximum damage mitigation and for helping his team. I do draft him quite a bit in RTA if I decide to bruise her up. So Krau with the Falconer Kluri, with Ken, you know, those types of bruiser style units are always nice. Okay, next up, oh yes, we have our Rose. So Rose here is part of my slow cleave comp, and I use her all the time, from Guild Wars to Arena, and even in RTA sometimes. She's a unit that's so fun to use, and as you can see, she really garbage stats here. Nothing really amazing at all. Only a few pieces are I-90'd here, and mostly for the speed substats. And yeah, she does her job perfectly. She just goes, buffs the attack, CR push for the entire team, and we're off to the races. Right, so she's running her 10 speed exclusive equipment. It's pretty much mandatory for her here. I chose to go for the decreased skill cooldown. It actually lets me cycle her turns quite a few times, especially during Guild Wars. Or sorry, not Guild Wars, Arena. In Arena, where you're not guaranteed to kill every unit, people like to put very tanky units on Arena. So if you cleave, you're probably killing most of their DPS threats, and then you'll cycle, you know, her skills to go ahead and clean up. She's running Bastion of Purrgis here as her artifact, and oh my god, I've pulled I think an extra copy on my quest for Silverblade Armintha, and now it's plus 24. This is very strong. This barrier with immunity is absolutely ridiculous. I use Rose in slow cleave, right? So this usually protects my cleaving unit, whether it be RB, Green Vildred, things like that, from getting debuffed. Okay, so usually I don't even care if something like a Dizzy, for instance, cuts my DPS. Like Rose will, you know, CR push, and then Dizzy is fast enough to cut in between my Rose and my DPS. Doesn't matter, right? She can use her S3, whatever. I will cleave right after because I had immunity. This is really strong. Okay, but enough about Bastion of Purrgis. Rose, I mean, you can see by her stats, she's still fairly tanky, she's still very resilient. I would like to get her speed faster, and I could probably by reforging some items here, but they're pretty garbage. Pretty garbage gear, so I don't feel like reforging those. Here we go. Karin here, I think that's how you're supposed to pronounce it. So Karin is pretty much used for Wyvern. She's fantastic. I slowed her down quite a bit. Now, her gear here, all free, destruction gear, minus the hit pieces, I think, just random hit pieces that didn't even roll fantastically. Yeah, see, it's like not great piece, It's okay. Yeah, free ring, free boots here. Not free boots, hit set boots, but effectiveness. So her effectiveness, it's actually just 2% too low. I would like her to hit 70%, so she always debuffs the Wyvern, minus the 15% RNG that you get. But as of right now, her offensive spread is actually very strong. She'll always crit the Wyvern because she has elemental advantage against it, and the speed is perfectly fine. She will always go before my Seaside Bellona, which is great for the defense break before all of my damage dealers go. So yeah, there she is. Oh, and yes, she's on Daydream Joker. Swap this off from Torn Sleeve, because my Sigret is actually built with effectiveness. Karin here is built with effectiveness. Seaside Bellona has effectiveness. So I actually land enough debuffs on the Wyvern that I don't really need Torn Sleeve. And this Daydream Joker here helps immensely with damage dealt, especially because Karin can turn cycle quite well with her S2, right? Giving her an additional turn. Alright, so there we go. Moving on, here we have the infamous Kise from her RTA debut video, which apparently you guys really loved. So here we are, and here are her stats. Now, she is quite fast. 236 is speed tuned, actually. I could make her faster, but she's speed tuned for specific comps. I do like bringing her with Angelica. Angelica is like 248 or something like that, so about 10-12 speed faster than my Kise, and that gives her the attack buff, but it also allows Kise to go before almost every Arbiter Vildred out there, at least on the champion level, and then I can snipe them out, right? So if Angelica goes, Kise goes, snipe out the Arbiter Vildred, can't revive, and then we go on from there. She's on a plus 30 portrait, very strong for that additional damage. I might look into testing some other artifacts in the future, but for right now, she's just way too consistent with this, so I don't really feel like swapping her out to anything else. I also sometimes use her. Now that I got my Falconer Kluri sped up, I'll show you her in a bit. Now that Falconer Kluri sped up, what I can do is she can snipe Rylets now, because she's faster than most Rylets out there. I know there's some insane ones like 240, 250, some 260 speed Rylets, but she's going to outspeed the average Rylet out there. So Falconer Kluri strips the evade, Kise goes, snipes down Rylet, and then we're off to the races, right? So another use for her as well. Okay, next up we have Flan. Oh my god, SSS, I know. I simped for Flan, but you know, what are you going to do about it? We have very nice defensive stat spread here. She's actually very resilient. I think I swapped out a couple pieces. I'm not 100% sure. I think I did. But her bulk, her bulk could be massively increased. As you can see, this is a pretty trashy piece of gear here. 67, you see level 70 necklace, but she doesn't need it. You can already tell she's going to survive. She's going to do her job as a debuffer. 160 something effectiveness here. It could definitely be higher, obviously, if I reforge some things, like for example these boots. She could be faster as well, but I just haven't done that because she's speed tuned as well. She is speed tuned for cleaves, so normally you would have a debuffer that goes first, stripper that goes first, then you have your debuffer like Flan, and then you will be able to go with your DPS. Now Flan is here at 240 something speed. I think my Rose was 248. Yeah, Rose was 248, so she's gonna go after Rose most of the time, which is what I prefer to happen. Typically if she goes before Rose, it's like, no, it's not always the end of the world, but it depends, right? It depends on my other units in the comp. So I have her a little on the slower side intentionally. She's running her own artifact here. For the additional combat readiness really doesn't matter, but it's for the 10 souls, right? So if I use her S3 or S2, I get 10 souls. I can soulburn RB, soulburn Green Vildred for the cleave, and then yeah, we win. We just win. Okay, next up we have Seaside Bellona. So SSB here, rockin' drink, right? That's pretty much what she's used for, just spamming drink. And with lifesteal, with immunity, she's gonna be very tanky, sitting there pumping out damage. Now I do kind of want to reforge this necklace a little bit, mostly just for the defensive stats up here. Not so, I don't really need the crit chance, but for the defensive stats, it's fantastic. I would love to just make her a little bit more bulkier. She does survive most things It's very hard for people to one-shot her, actually, without something like a defense break in RTA. So whenever I do draft her in a bruisery comp, she is quite a threat, especially because she heals herself up, right? If they fail to kill her and she counters, she's going to heal quite a bit. And of course, plus 30 drink, made possible by the Bottle of Knowledge in the powder shop. Highly recommend. Always buy that. Always buy that whenever it refreshes in the powder shop. Alright, next up we have Dizzy. So, Dizzy here, I don't really use her all too often, but she's here, she's fully built, she's decked out for a potential draft. Now, immunity counter set, right? My pieces aren't great, they're not great, but her stats are pretty strong. 1,500 defense to make sure she doesn't get sniped out by Rylets. 18,000 HP here. Speed is a little slow, but that's intentional. I do want to keep her on the slower side because I want the opponent's immunity to run out before I use my S3. And that's about it. The effectiveness is low. It's not very important because you're mostly debuffing DPS units. If there's a healer on the other team, you don't care if they're blinded. You don't care if they have attack downs and stuff like that, right? So it doesn't necessarily matter. And she's on Aila Violin here for the chance to prevent additional buffs from happening. So not only is she able to debuff the opponents, but she's also able to strip any potential buffs that they do put up. Alright, so moving on here, Fairytale Tenebria, that's right, you guys saw me pull for her, and here she is. No Molagoras here. Now I know some people are like, oh, but you need to get that -1 turn cooldown. I'll get that eventually when I get her to Friendship 10. For the 3 free Molas, I'll just use them here, because otherwise everything else is damage dealt, and I don't really want to Molagora her up to plus 15. Here are her stats though. She's fairly decent at staying alive. She's not like really tanky, but for a mage here, this is pretty decent at this speed and this effectiveness. So her speed here is on the lower side. I don't really want to make her super fast. She's not a speed contester. There's no reason to build her as a speed contester, at least for me. She is mostly going to be used as a slower, I wouldn't say a control comp, but a slower comp, right? That's why she's on immunity as well. And she's rocking 144 effectiveness, which is pretty decent. It's not the best, it's not the worst. It could definitely be a little bit higher, but here we are. Yeah, and her speed could definitely be made faster if I gave her actual boots that are reforged. That's, you know, additional 5 speed. Her helmet could be improved. Her necklace can be improved. But all these things don't really matter for how I use her. So, yeah. Tagahel's Ancient Book is what I use currently on her, although it's probably better for something like Aila Violin, for something like a Abyssal Crown. You know, those are all very good options. I just kind of slapped this on her because I don't really have any other mage artifacts that I find useful on her as of right now. But yeah, there she is. Very fun to use with Emo Ken, by the way. I use her all the time in Arena with that, and I fail lots of Guild War battles by trying to meme with that as well. Alright, moving on here, we have Luluca. Luluca here rocking her re-gear. Again, I re-gear Luluca like every one of these videos. But she's on spare gear. She's on spare gear. Nothing too impressive here, I don't believe. Her crit rate's pretty low, but that's fine because of this artifact that she's running here. Her speed's fine. She goes before my Commander Lorena, which isn't really a hard thing to achieve. But you can tell she's on spare gear. 70 helmet, 65 ring, 85 blue boots, right? It has some effectiveness from her exclusive equipment, which helps with debuffs for things like expeditions and raids. I do use her everywhere in PvE. She is one of my most used units, as you can tell by the Friendship 10 right there, right? Midnight Bloom is the artifact I'm running on her, brings her to 100% crit chance, but also helps Commander Lorena reach her 100% crit chance threshold as well. So, fantastic little support artifact there. Especially because I don't really need Daydream Joker on her anymore. Commander Lorena does all the carrying and raid, so she's just here as a support unit, and it works out. Alright, moving on, we have Angelic Montmorancy. She's someone that I looked into re-gearing, and oh my god, I can definitely have her at a way better build than this, by the way. I can have her at a 250 effect res build with about 190 something speed. I have the gear for it, however, I am currently not willing to ungear my 2 pieces on my Angelica. I'm not willing to do that yet, so we're holding off on it, right? We're going to hold off until we get some more pieces. But as of right now, she's really used for PvE. I don't ever really use her in PvP, She's almost never drafted. I don't face control comps, and if I do, I just go first and cleave it. So yeah, she's on the Rod of Amaryllis, best in slot artifact for healing purposes. You might want Magaraha's Tome if you're trying to counter people's control comps, right? So you can cycle more turns, more cleanses for the team to keep up with stuns or sleeps or anything like that. All right, moving on here, we have Diene, or Diene, as I've been hearing people call her. So I actually don't know which one she's gonna be called. But anyway, she's here and she's rocking pretty standard stuff, right? 150 res, pretty good defense, pretty good health. Still one of the strongest units out there in RTA. Really good pick. However, she's made a little bit obsolete if your opponent has ML Krau. True damage really hurts her. Mostly because of the fact that she doesn't really have any healing of her own, outside of course, Rod of Amaryllis here. And the fact that Krau's true damage can't crit, right? So your anti-crit buff, absolutely useless. So that is one reason why she's kind of dropped off in my drafts. However, if my opponent doesn't have ML Krau, or if I feel comfortable banning ML Krau, because I know the rest of their draft, and I might draft Diene, ban the ML Krau, my bruiser comp looking very strong, okay? She's one of my, probably one of my most popular Soul Weavers that I tend to draft. It's her or Ruele, typically. However, I do have a new addition to the roster that I'll show you guys in just a second. Okay, moving on here to the Earth units. We have Alencia. Alencia rocking really strong defensive stats. Nothing's really changed about her. I do want to speed her up. I say that as she has an 18 speed helmet here, but I do want to speed her up. I want to put her on speed boots. However, I do need to get a pair of speed boots that has a ton of HP. I also need to get HP on things like this necklace here has like no HP whatsoever. It has like 20 crit chance though, which is why she's wearing it. But like this, right? Very subpar ring, not very good, but it has the crit chance, so that's why she's wearing it. And these boots here, again, rolled all into effectiveness. Would have been great if it went crit damage or crit chance or something like that, but as of right now, she works really strong in a comp with units like Diene, like Krau, things that can keep her alive, right? Aureus, Adamant Shield, those types of effects can definitely help her longevity. And with this amount of HP, and while her crit damage is low, I am running Draco Plate to compensate for that, 30% more crit damage here, and a built-in Adamant Shield for herself. So she's actually very strong. I like to draft her with things like Krau, and the Aureus really helps keep her alive while she's dishing out a ton of damage of her own. Okay, moving on here, we have Lilibet. Lilibet as my Arbiter Vildred counter. Now, you're going to see she is re-geared. Yeah, that's right. Now, much lower attack, about dropped like 200 attack, I think. And I think I dropped a little crit damage, but her speed went up, right? And she's really good for the same reason that Melissa, I explained earlier, is really good. You use her with a CR pusher like Rose, and she completely obliterates Arbiter Vildred, right? Attack buffed Lilibet is killing Arbiter Vildred pretty much no matter what. Now, if you need a soul burn, you might bring a mage or something to soul burn with, but I've been running into a lot of Guild War defense comps lately where they have Lilibet, sorry, not Lilibet, they have Arbiter Vildred and Revenant Violet both on the same team. And so I was always too slow to be able to, you know, snipe both of those units out at the same time. But now what I can do is potentially use a Rose. Rose pushes up Lilibet and Melissa. Lilibet kills Arbiter Vildred, Extinction, can't revive. Melissa goes in for the Rylet, kills him, he's done, right? So that is something I've definitely tested out. I've tested out a couple times, and it's worked really well in Guild Wars. So very happy with the speed tuning, right? Again, the 170s, 180s is usually enough if you have like a Rose to CR push. That will help you outspeed most RBs and most Violets. Alright, so moving on here, we have Helga. Switched her off a lot of pieces, spread the love around for her speed pieces, and built her back on bulk. I do like running her on bulk here. She's a really strong support unit for fun mock battles, right, in RTA. You guys have recently seen the mock battle video that's posted on my channel. I do like doing those quite frequently with my guild, so that's why I have a lot of these more fun units built up. Obviously, if I were to try hard in RTA, I probably would not draft her, although she is a speed imprint. I do have to give her that. She is a speed imprint, but slowed her speed down. She's still over 200 speed, which is not too bad for cycling around her turns, but she's definitely not where she used to be. I think it's like almost 240 speed. The speed imprint she gets just speeds up her allies, and yeah, she's not too bad. I don't use her with Carrot much anymore. It was fun back in the day, but now I have better attack buffers like Rose, like Diene, that I can use instead. She's on Alencia Wrath as kind of just a placeholder artifact. I don't really know what to give her here. I really want to try out Ranan's Memorandum, I think it was, which will actually help her cycle quite insanely fast later on into the fight. Or something like Durandal, right? I have like a plus 21 Durandal or something like that to help her cycle turns. She's good at keeping buffs up on the team, and she's really great at defense breaking as well. Although, if I wanted to use her as a defense breaker, I might need to boost up her effectiveness. She does have an effectiveness buff though, so keep that in mind. Alright, moving on here, we have Yufine, the Earth one, and yeah, she's rocking some pretty sick damage. Almost max crit damage, almost 4,000 attack. Pretty decent bulk for a DPS unit. She's not full glass cannon, she can withstand a hit or two. But absolutely no speed whatsoever, right? No speed whatsoever, because I usually use her with Crimson Armin, or I use her with Oxlots. Now, the only downside of using her with something like Oxlots is the fact that she doesn't really have all that much crit chance. That's why she has Hellcutter here. I typically just let her charge Hellcutter, get those stacks up. She's going to get the crit chance she needs, nuke something, you know, wait a couple of the opponent's turns to pass, or my unit's turns to pass, and then she'll nuke somebody else. Usually you bring her into, I bring her into Guild War comps, but always calculated ones where I know that she's not going to be targeted by the AI, right? I wouldn't bring her into any units with fire on the defense team, right? Like if there's a Lilias or something like that, probably would not bring Yufine there. Okay, so I'd probably bring her into something like a Seaside Bellona, a Charles, Fallen Cecilias, those types of units, but yeah. She's very good at what she does. Very good at what she does. If I want to use her in RTA, I'd boost the speed up to over 200. Right, keeping all the other stats, I boost her speed up to over 200. Maybe less crit damage and more crit chance, though. All right. So, moving on here, we have Charles. Charles, the king of RNG, and putting in so much work on my Guild War defense. Here he is. Absolute truck. Absolute truck. Almost 1,400 defense, 18,000 HP, counter set on immunity, almost 100, like 0. Come on, 0.2%, Smilegate really, yeah, 0.2% crit chance off, but he's never missed a crit for me, so might as well be 100. Rocking a lot of crit damage here, really high attack for, pretty high attack, I wouldn't say really high, pretty high attack for a Charles, who has incredibly low base attack. He's on the additional proc chance for his EE, and only a plus 15 Elber's Ritual Sword because I'm a pleb, okay? Alright. So there's Charles. I mean, he does all the work he needs to do, right? No need to explain. Everyone at some point, if you're watching this video, you've probably been decimated by a Charles before. Falconer Kluri, my new and improved Kluri here. Really loving her stats. Now, I used to have her on immunity, took her off immunity, because I need these hit pieces, not only for the effectiveness, but because they just roll really high speed for some reason. So got some pretty decent speed pieces. They're not the fastest. Right, as you can clearly tell, not the fastest. 8 speed on necklace. This necklace is kind of doo-doo, but it had the speed and it had a little bit of effectiveness. That's like literally the only reason why it's there. I'm really lacking in HP main stat necklaces on a speed set. Yeah, same thing with rings. I'm really lacking HP main stat rings that have speed on it. But this one also happened to have effectiveness and some defense. So it wasn't too bad. The attack rolls kind of suck though. All right. And here we go, yeah, another boot here, have some defense, have some effectiveness, brings her up to over 100 effectiveness, which is already way better than what I anticipated for this type of speed. And she's currently on Adamant Shield, so what she does is she opens for some of my teams. She'll open into Rylets to strip before my Kise snipes, she'll open for other potential like one-shot threats that I might have, right? So I might open with a Falconer Kluri, a draft a Rose, and like 2 damage dealers, and so Falconer Kluri can lock a unit down, defense break them for someone maybe like Green Vildred, who can easily kill them now, and then because Green Vildred kills with his S3, he can proc his S1, or sorry, his S2, and yeah, just a lot of little combos you can do with Falconer Kluri to lock units down, and she's such a huge threat in RTA. So definitely had to get her faster. I would like her to be even faster, maybe like 265 speed, 270 speed would be kind of nice, but that would require me to get way better speed on these pieces here, which is a little tough for me at the moment because I have so many debuffers that I'm currently gearing. Alright, moving on to Celine. Yes, all the Earth units here getting a lot of attention. Yeah, here we go. Very decent attacks spread here, offensive spread for this speed, right? 195 speed Celine. Now this is what I like to see. She can turn cycle fairly well, and that means she can cycle her S2. She's quite a threat if you bring her against healers. Healers cannot use their, heals and stuff, so I can use her in a bruisery comp. She has pretty decent defensive spread here. Now I didn't build her to be tanky. She's just built enough that her evasion can keep her alive. If I have an Aureus, an Adamant Shield, something like that on the team to help soak up some damage, because I would draft her in a more bruisery type situation where I'm trying to tank up. That will be where she would shine with this type of stat here. She's not a full nuke. I could definitely just replace this boot with a attack boot, drop her speed down by a ton, and then she would still go ham. She will probably nuke stuff, but I feel like this is a little bit more versatile here. She has her crit chance from this EE, where she attacks the highest unit, enemy with the highest attack, I mean. And then she has her own artifact here, plus 30, right? I know her banner is coming up. This thing, if you're using this thing, it's got to be plus 30. Like, 95% chance, 80%, 75% chance, not going to cut it. 100% chance, just activate it, right? It's kind of like drink. You have to have it proc. If you're using this, just have it proc. If not, go for something like Portrait, go for something else that gives you a more consistent source of damage, or maybe something to keep her alive, like Moonlight Dreamblade. But yeah, if you're using this artifact, it has to be plus 30. Also, shout out to the Powder of Knowledge shop with the Bottle of Knowledge, yeah? So yeah, there we go, that's Celine. Very, very reliable unit. I bring her everywhere. Okay, now we have Vildred. Yes, Green Vildred. I know, finally build him up. Plus 15 him as well, just immediately, after I test him out for a couple rounds. Very strong offensive stat spread, very low speed. He is not built like most people's Vildreds, which are like 200 something speed, because I don't have the speed boots for it. I just simply do not have the speed boots for it. It's very unfortunate. But it is what it is. He still has some pretty decent, like this ring is very, very good. But yeah, I just don't have the speed main stat with the perfect offensive substat boots that I can spare for Vildred as of right now. But if I do speed him up, he'd be 200 something speed, I would like that. But he'd have to keep 4,000 attack. As of right now, I can't do that. I can get him to like 3,600, 700 attack, but again, all these pieces, they need to be much better. Like this piece here, kind of not good. There's no crit damage at all here. This piece here rolled okay. It's not the best. And this piece here, right? It could definitely be something that can be reforgeable, but this had the crit chance, the low attack rolls, right? These wasted stats into HP and effectiveness could definitely be better. Okay, he's currently on a Symbol of Unity though, trying to build up this artifact, trying to get to plus 30 as soon as I can. I actually do like this on Vildred because it actually helps me against units that are like Moonlight Dreamblade, like Tempest Surins. Tempest Surins are starting to run Moonlight Dreamblades. They're really annoying. So I put this on Vildred, and Vildred can actually kill Tempest Surin because his S3, if he kills, can proc into an S2, right, which is very nice. So yeah, he's my like go-to like cleaver against Tempest Surin defense teams on like Guild Wars or arenas. He's also pretty good in arena, or sorry, not arena, RTA, if I bring in slow cleave. Like I'll draft normally until my very last pick and I draft a Rose. Rose will be able to boost up my RB, my Vildred, whatever other damage dealers I have, SSB, Kayrons, and they'll be able to nuke down my opponents. I only ever slow cleave if my opponents are drafting all tanks and they're just bulking up, right? So you just gotta smack them for as much damage as possible, yeah, it's just, you know, the spear that pierces everything or the shield that's impenetrable. It's just comes down to that, right? No other way to beat 5 knights. Alright, moving on, we have Bellona here. Kind of nerfed her quite a bit. She is only really used in PvE, so I decided, why am I giving her really great gear when I could just keep her on gear that works, right? So not the best gear, just spare stuff laying around. None of it's I-90'd. Yeah, got some pretty decent pieces like this one here, 19% crit chance. Reforged would be pretty nice as well, but she's currently holding it because no one else really uses a piece like this as of right now. And yeah, she's using A13 and a couple of other PvE adventures. Not used too often. Got her Dispel a buff for the A13 and Bloodstone to help keep the team just a little bit additional topping off of the health. Alright, so moving on here, we have Iseria. Kind of re-geared her. Now, she's used in PvE and not much else, but I gave her a ton of bulk. I realized, hey, I don't really need immunity on her, so I'm not using her in PvP, so why not just give her bulk? We will make her survive. Her effectiveness is kind of low, but again, I don't use her as a debuffer in PvP. 70, 75, 80% is good enough for PvE, and so that's where we're at. She's currently on speed and hit set. Focus more on just keeping her alive, because she used to die quite a bit, and she would be like one of the first units to die in A13 sometimes, so I just was like, okay, screw it. We're going to give her all this, and she's running plus 15 sachets, which is just there for A13, where I'm able to push up my team every time I kill one of those little mobs that the boss spawns. Yeah, so there she is. Very, very bad build. So don't replicate this unless maybe you're going for just PvE stuff. Alright, speaking of replicating, this is a counter Rin. So, Rin on counter, on immunity, rocking some pretty solid overall stats. I wouldn't say that they're great bulk or great speed. The speed for a counter set's okay. I would like her to be a little faster, but she's actually fine because she's able to cycle off of her S1, gives herself 15% combat readiness. So that's pretty nice. Pretty high effectiveness too. 80 something effectiveness is actually very strong because she's able to dispel buffs from the opponent. Obviously this EE is the one that dispels buffs for her own team, which I think is the strongest one for her, because when you pick Rin, people like to pick Basar, and a Basar ruins Rin. So being able to cleanse the unbuffable and putting buffs on your team, fantastic stuff. Obviously you probably just banned Basar anyway, because who doesn't ban Basars? But yeah, this allows you to get unbuffables off, maybe an unhealable off. It cleanses before you use the skill, so it is fairly nice for keeping your team alive. She's on Celestine here, which helps heal whenever she counters, and whenever she counters, she dispels a buff from the opponent, or there's a chance to, and whenever she attacks with her S1, she also gains combat readiness. So it is a fantastic, fantastic piece, fantastic artifact for her, I should say. Okay, so moving on here, we have Roana. Roana got a couple of her pieces yoinked from her, so she's kind of suffering in the speed a little bit. I think she dropped about like 10 speed, but she's actually pretty good in effect res. Geez, the number of Seaside Bellonas that were able to debuff my Roana lately is insane, and I hate it. So, gave her effect resistance set. Recently rolled this piece. It's kind of garbage. I wish this didn't roll into attack. If it rolled into like res or HP here, it'd be kind of nice, but nope, of course not. On some other spear piece of gear though, this is a free effect res piece. Really nice rolls into this piece though, 32% effect res, which is nice. Effect res ring, right, and a 35 speed boot because I am running out of speed boots. But Roana doesn't necessarily need too much speed. She has the bulk to survive, she has the healing capabilities because I usually bring her in Seaside Bellona, and she has Stella Harpa here to potentially dispel the defense breaks from Seaside Bellona. It's really annoying to deal with, and I find myself usually in a position where I'm okay. Like, Roana's okay in terms of health, but her allies are not, because they got defense broken and they're taking too much damage. So this is there, kind of for that. Wondrous Potion Vial might also work. It's just that her speed is a little low, so she doesn't cycle as much. Celestine could also work if you have a counter build, right? But I'm finding this to be okay. Touch of Rekos is another good option here. But again, if Seaside Bellona puts Unhealable, maybe not on Roana, but on some of her teammates, then you're in trouble. So having a way to kind of cleanse is very nice. Okay, so moving on here, we have General Purrgis. General Purrgis, nothing's changed. He's Wyvern tank. He's still one of the best Wyvern tanks, and I absolutely love him to death. He works way too hard, tanking all those Wyvern shots day after day. But here are his stats. Again, none of these pieces are fantastic, right? I only reforged this piece because, I mean, it's not even a great piece. I only reforged it because I had all those golem reforged materials, and I don't farm golem, so I threw it into this. This has absolutely no substats that are worth even looking at, but you know, it works. It works. He survives. He survives in Wyvern. That's all that matters. Proof of Valor here to help him out there with tanking a little bit. Both his and Carrots are plus 27. I would like to plus 30 Carrots Proof of Valor, but now we have to work on the other guild artifact that just came out. Alright, but yeah, there's General Purrgis, fairly standard stuff. Little Queen Charlotte, oh yeah, another unit I completely reworked here, and I'm so happy, so happy with how she works. If you guys checked out my RTA highlights video, she gets showcased there, where I fight in a 1v1 match against an ML Ball using LQC, and somehow winning. Alright, as you can see here, I gimped her attack, gimped some of her crit damage. She still has 100% crit chance. She has 170 speed, which is actually very high for what I'm currently rocking. But yeah, her defensive spread is very solid. 1,300 defense, 15,000 HP. It's incredible. Obviously, something like this, these substats kind of suck. I'll be very honest here. These substats suck. I only reforged this because I needed the crit chance here. The flat attack was actually really nice. Came in handy for boosting her up quite a bit. And I guess the flat defense is okay and the speed is alright, but overall, this could definitely be a better piece. There could definitely be way better pieces on her, but with what I had to achieve these stats, fairly nice. Sigrid's Scythe here as her artifact helps her sustain in fights, and because of how bulky she is, this comes up quite handily, right? Very nice for healing. Okay, yeah, she's definitely one of my most drafted bruises in RTA as well. Love doing that, except the only issue is people like to counter draft Spectre Tenebria because you lack AoEs, right? Even though she got reworked and her S3 does AoEs, but only if you hit a dark unit. Alright, moving on, we have Crimson Armin. Nothing's really changed about her, I don't think. Yeah, so she's still rocking... actually no, I think I did change a couple things. I changed a couple of these pieces here. Yeah, she has a little bit of effectiveness now, not that it really matters. Yeah, so she got a little bit changed, but not too much. Still tanky, still use her with Seaside Bellona, still tanks Ruele like a champ. She is still one of the best damage mitigators in the game. Rocking the Aureus, rocking her passive Adamant Shield here. So it's not too bad. Still one of my favorite units to use defensively. Okay, moving on here, Celeste is not geared, but what we have is Faithless Lidica. So she actually got a little improvement. Yeah, actually a pretty big improvement. She has over 150 effectiveness now, because I got a new boot. Finally got a new boot. So, rocking quite a bit of speed. I would like all these pieces to eventually have like 20 speed. I think if you get 20 speed on all of her pieces, she can reach about like 190-ish. Alright, I want to get her to 190. That's my goal. Okay, so yeah. Currently here, this new boot that I have, this rolled really well, by the way. Pretty much high rolled everywhere, except one roll into, I think it was HP. I think there's a low roll into HP here. But yeah, otherwise, very solid overall. The effectiveness really helped as well, boosting her up. And so she's no longer a pleb with 130 something effectiveness, she's actually a 158 now. Song of the Stars is my artifact of choice on her, and I do not regret switching to this at all. So strong. Hit a Ruele with this, put the target debuff on him, 15% less chance to evade, right? Every little bit counts. Put the target debuff on a unit you just want to nuke. Every little bit helps, right? Faithless Lidica is such a strong unit. I love drafting her, but man, she gets countered pretty hard by units like Adley and ML Ball and such, so gotta look out for those. Okay, moving on here, we have Watcher Schuri. So, improved him a little bit. He does a lot more damage now. Slowed down by like 5 speed or so, but a lot more damage, and I'm quite happy with it. He's here to nuke down tanks, essentially. He's on cleanup duty, right? So he goes after I cleave, but he's usually to take down the last person that's standing. Typically, that's going to be something like an ML Haste, an ML Krau, a Blue Krau, right? Those types of units where I need to clean them up, or else they're going to clean me up. He's running Sachet Itanes, and pretty good for just boosting up his own combat readiness, right, when people are getting killed. Usually run him with things like Lidica, maybe a Rose, to just push up, right, his combat readiness as well. Gives him the attack buff, or run him with Rose, and then he's able to one-shot anything in the world, like Ruele's, whatever, Fallen Cecilia's. So yeah, very strong unit. Absolutely love him, especially for his speed imprint. Moving on, speaking of speed, we got Broman here. Nothing's really changed too much about him overall, I don't think. I think I swapped out a couple of his weapons or something like that. Been swapping out my speed units like weapons. But yeah, overall, still rocking about the same speed, around 260, right? He's currently 258. Over 150 effectiveness. He does his job sometimes whenever he wants to, but whenever he does go ham, he goes ham. Abyssal Crown here for the stuns, because stripping 2 buffs, including immunity, into a full team stun, yeah, that's right. That's why we Broman users use Broman. You know that feeling. Okay, those of you out there who use him, you know that feeling. Alright. So, that's Broman right there. Next up, Magical Scholar Doris. Now, earlier I mentioned I love drafting Diene and Ruele as my healers, but now, Doris here is incredible. Incredible. Really strong defensive spread here, about as tanky as my Ruele, actually. Very high speed as well, because I like to get the turn cycles on her. I did gimp her effect res, because she is not really used to fight control type teams, right? That's not her job. She's there to fight against dark units. I'm talking about Arbiter Vildreds, Revenant Violets, right? ML Kens, like just name any dark unit. She is so good against them. Her defense buff in her S2 and her CR push in her S3 make her an incredibly strong utility tool. Wondrous Potion Vials here, just with her high speed, she's able to cycle fast enough to actually cleanse a lot of debuffs that might be inflicted on some people, right? But very powerful unit, and because she is a little lower on the effect res side, having something like this is quite handy, you know, in case she does get targeted down for a stun or something. She can cleanse it off herself when it comes to her turn. I would love to have immunity on her, but again, I don't really bring her into those teams where she could get lockdown, right? As a first turn lockdown unit, there's usually another target. If they have like a Falconer Kluri or something, they're probably going to lock down somebody else rather than her. But just enough effect res that if anyone with 0 effectiveness tries to do something to her, it will never land. Alright, moving on, we have Ruele of Light here. I think I got another Destina as an imprint, so there was that. Kind of nice, but here we are. No waste of stats, really. Just got a bunch of effect res, bunch of speed, HP, and defense. That's pretty much it. Not fully reforged. I should probably do that. I just haven't. I don't know why. Just haven't done that, and she would be an absolute monster if I did. But I don't really draft her all too often. We will see. We will see. She is currently on Water's Origin, which I also need a plus 30. I'm just, god, I need to get around to these types of things. Yeah, it needs to be plus 30 Water's Origin, but gains combat readiness, recovers health, whatever. Fairly strong, very typical stuff here. Might actually swap this to Idol's Cheer for some testing, but who knows? We'll have to see if I find a comp where that's useful in. Okay, moving on. Commander Lorena. Mentioned her earlier when I talked about Luluca. And Commander Lorena is the queen of PvE, absolutely destroys everything, right? She's running awkward pieces like this because I do like to have her bulky, so I have her defense and health up as well. 1k defense and at least 10k health is what I typically like to have on all my units, if possible, right? So I do try to aim for those. And those defensive stats are really, it actually comes in handy. Instead of just stacking all attack, you know, she used to have like 4,400 attack or something like that. Instead of stacking it onto attack, she used to have more crit damage too. My runs are just more consistent. I like to throw, you know, raid and stuff like that on auto in the background. Expeditions, throw it on auto. She does work as long as she stays alive, right? You don't deal any damage when you're dead. So those expedition clears, those types of things became much more consistent when I gave her the bulk, lowered her offensive stats a little bit. It's not fully gimped, right? These are really respectable stats, especially with her passive and Daydream Joker. Okay, so yeah, she definitely does what she needs to do. Moving on, Dark Corvus. Yeah, I've been neglecting this guy. I don't use him very often. Even when I'm playing Guild Wars off screen, I still try to test out comps in Guild Wars because I feel like it's just a really great time to test new strategies, right? Especially during preseason and stuff. So I don't typically bring Dark Corvus in. He's still geared, he still does his stuff. He's very slow, but I use him with General Purrgis. General Purrgis, Dark Corvus, and Achates is my comp, and he definitely, like, if you bring him in, you should never lose. You should never lose with Dark Corvus, right? Effect res from Strat Gauntlet in the artifact slot brings him to 150 res, so he can't get debuffed, can't get pushed back, can't get provoked, none of that stuff. Okay, so he's just there. A ticking time bomb will eventually just smash your units and then win. So yeah, very simple and straightforward unit. Next up we have ML Ken. ML Ken here rocking some bulk, right? 1,500 defense, almost 16k HP. If I gave her, LQC actually stole his Sigrid Scythe, so I had a spare copy here that I just plus 15 and gave him. Otherwise, he'd have 16k HP. But yeah, here we go. All of his things, a broken attack set, by the way. I know his attack, you might be looking at it like, oh, that's low, that's not good. 3,600. Yeah, it is, but he doesn't really need much. He's gonna be killing a lot of things, especially because I like to bring him against cleavers. So this type of these types of stats here on him, combined with you know, an Aureus, an Adamant Shield defense buff from Krau, something of that sort, he's not gonna die. Like, my Ken doesn't die. He just sits there and counters everything. Very, very strong unit. And I hope I can find better replacements for pieces like this piece really sucks. Like, this piece, let's be honest, this piece sucks. It's just because it has a lot of health that it's keeping his bulk up that I'm using it right now, and he used to be part of this attack set. But yeah, like, pieces like this suck. This piece here is actually okay-ish, and this piece is okay because of the defense, but we can definitely find better. None of these can be reforged either. Actually, none of ML Ken's current pieces can be reforged, so we can definitely do a lot better. It's just very hard to gear ML Ken. He's so specific in what he needs for his stats, so it's kind of awkward trying to gear him. All right, moving on. Arbiter Vildred here. Yeah, that's right. Rocking some pretty solid offensive stats. Not as strong as green Vildred though, but my Arbiter Vildred, of course, has a lot more speed. Yeah, I tried replacing some of his pieces here, see if I got any improvements. It's really hard to find improvements for RB's gear because yeah, he kind of has some of my best gear. Alexa's Basket as my artifact. I would love to plus 30 this, but they refused to put Alexa's Basket back on the powder shop, so I've just been waiting, right? So still waiting on that one there. Alright, but yeah, typical RB, very standard. You've probably seen it a million times. Speaking of things that you like to see, Crescent Moon Rin though, right here, rocking some pretty good bulk now, actually. Almost 1,200 defense and 12,000 HP. Now, 288 speed is fast, but it's not necessarily fast enough for what I want her to do, right? As you can see, 13 speed on this, like really 13 speed on a ring, it's kind of sad. But she can easily be 290 plus, which I would like to get her to eventually, as a counter to things like Cerise and, you know, other units that like to speed contest. She is my dedicated speed contester, so people bring things like Cerise, if people draft like Flidicas and just a bunch of other speed units with imprints, I will draft Crescent Moon Rin, because, yeah, I don't need as many speed imprints to get her on the same level as, let's say, a Flidica, because her base speed is so high. Alright, she's rocking RNL, before I forget. She's rocking RNL for the extra chance to proc additional turns, which it actually comes up quite a bit, quite often, especially because her S3 already gives her an extra turn. So you have that initial S3 gets a chance, and then, you know, if you follow up in a S2 and S1, that's also an additional try at getting an extra proc out of this. Okay, but anyway, moving on. We have another new unit, All-Rounder Wanda. That's right, built her up, and I'm really liking her. She's been performing pretty well. And as you can see, she's not on a damage bill. No crit damage at all. There's no crit damage. Built with some effectiveness, built with a bit of attack, 100% crit chance, and speed, a little bit of bulk. Right? She's on a crit chance necklace. I really love to switch this out to crit damage, but it's really hard to find the crit substats that I need. So she's currently on that. She's on some other spare gear. Like, this is all reforged, but it's all spare. I didn't reforge it just for her. As you can see, yeah, health, effectiveness, attack. I'm trying to keep her very simple and straightforward. I would probably replace this portrait. She doesn't one-shot Rylets or anything. If I had her on crit damage, she could. But as of right now, she's not really meant to one-shot anything. She does, though, deal quite a bit of damage to Rylets, and it helps me control him, right? She's at a speed where she goes before most Rylets, so you stun him, and yeah, he loses his first turn, where he's most dangerous, and then you just kind of kill him off, right? So she's a really good control unit, very good. And I've been having a lot of fun using her as well, especially mock battles. Next up, Briar Witch Iseria. Speaking of fun units, yeah, she's very fun, but not very too viable, yeah? Not very viable. Ever since I saw the Archdemon Mercedes kind of preview, you know, I'm like, wow, be nice if Briar Witch Iseria could get a little buff here. But yeah, she's rocking some spare gear, not amazing stuff, just something that's gets her stats to where it needs to be. She's not incredibly fast, she's not incredibly tanky, she's not incredibly powerful. She's just rocking speed and effectiveness, and she's there to go ahead and debuff Kayrons before I cleave him. So buff block on Kayron, cleave, win. Although, I do have to say, Fairytale Tenebria now does pretty much the same thing, except she also provokes, and she also lays additional debuffs like silence, defense breaks, or what, unhealables, I think, with her S2. And now I'm just looking at Briar Witch Iseria like, I really want to use you, but kind of subpar, right? This hit chance, increase this to 55%. That would be great. Make this a 100% chance to decrease attack and make them unable to be buffed for 2 turns, right? That would be fantastic. I currently just have Wall of Order on her. I don't ever really use her. I might use her for fun in a guild war, but other than that, I don't really ever draft her. Sometimes I might draft her if I see a Kayron and I'm very confident in my other units in my draft that they'll be able to handle the rest of my opponent's draft. When she works, but it's the fact that she's so inconsistent in what she does. It would be great if she was a Rylet counter, right? This hit chance would be higher. This unable to be buffed, right? Prevent the Rylet from reapplying evasion. That would be great. But as of right now, not the best. All right, Oxlots here. Oxlots. Yeah, slowed him down. I didn't like him fast. Now, I know some of you guys are gonna be like, well, why do you have an Oxlot if you're not gonna make him like 290, 300 speed and just boost someone up? I don't need to. Normally when I cleave, I use Flidicas to push up. I like slow cleave, so I like to bring Rose. I'm starting to sway away from like the really high-end speed game thing because it's really hard to compete at that level when you're very limited in your resources. Like, I have 25 mil gold, right? That was from the last hunt event. We had 2 weeks of back-to-back hunts, and the first hunt event, it was I got like 40 mil gold, right? 2 weeks of hunt buff, 2 days of hunt buffs. The first 2 days, got 40 mil gold. Blew it all in one day, and I didn't get a single speed piece upgrade. So it sucks. I'm saving this gold for now because I'm completely out of leaves. Saving that gold here for potentially upgrading anything that comes my way randomly, but it's too hard to compete at that level. Taga's Ancient Book, obviously, it's like best in slot for him. But yeah, it's very hard to compete at that level. But also, because of that, I ended up gimping Oxlots. Obviously, I could have gimped something like Rin, take a couple pieces of Flidica, you know, Broman, to make Oxlots faster. I can make like a 280 Oxlots, right? I can do it. But is it worth it for me? I don't know. He has bulk though. This Oxlots has bulk. I like him to survive things. The longer he's alive, the better it is for you. And because he's slow, he's on immunity. So he does have his uses. You can still build him slow, right? So for those of you guys like, oh, I can't compete with all these fast people, you can build a slow Oxlots, make him tanky, right? He'll survive. Acid can't kill him here. And so yeah, I mean, you look at this weapon. It's complete garbage, right? Complete garbage weapon. Garbage helmet, just the 11 speed. Garbage stats here, just the 11 speed. This is an okay piece, right? Kind of awkward, like, attack and effectiveness. You don't really need those, but it has 11 speed, right? This ring, you don't really need the crit chance of the... I mean, I guess crit chance is okay if you're running him with CDOM combos, but effect res, like, but it has 11 speed. you're seeing a pattern here. But yeah, a little bit of bulk here as well. He could definitely be bulkier, he could definitely be faster, he could definitely be, you know, a more consistent unit. However, this actually works in combo with Angelica. My Angelica is about 248, right? Angelica's like 248. Oxlots here is 237. He's not going to outspeed my Angelica with speed RNG, or at least, like, it's really, really rare for him to do so. So, I like to do Angelica, right? Buff with her extinction, right? And then Oxlots boost up my DPS that cleaves, and I can cleave into RB teams, squishy RB teams on defense without having to worry. Right? So that is also definitely an upside of having him a little slower. I speed tuned this though. I made sure that he was at least 10 speed slower than Angelica for what I use him for. Alright, anyway, moving on here, we have Challenger Dominiel here, and I do want to boost her speed and her attack. She needs to hit a little bit harder. But as of right now, I just, like this piece here, no attack on the helmet. It's just that I don't consistently draft. I do draft her quite often, but I don't consistently draft her all the time in RTA. Especially because I run into a lot of players who just like to tank up, so I have to kind of rely on a slower cleave with Rose, and my CDOM's not at that point where I can consistently draft her and just have her nuke something like MO Kraus, right? She's definitely not there. She needs way more attack, a little bit more speed, to make sure that Elena's, which are getting more popular in RTA, Elena's don't cut in front of her, right? So I need to be able to pop Elena's and stuff too. Definitely need work, but for right now, what she does, she works. Tagahel's Ancient Book, best in slot for her. So you can soul burn and just pop something out of existence. And last but not least, I've been talking about comboing things with her, speed tuning things around her. She is actually a major player in a lot of my Guild War offensive comps. I do draft her sometimes in RTA. It's quite interesting. People do like to ban her though, when they do have Arbiter Vildreds. But yeah, here we go. Basically what I'm looking for is speed and effectiveness. She's at 248 speed. She's about 150 effect res if you factor in her artifact, which is Shamadra's Staff, which gives her 20% more effect res. She is not self-imprinted. If she was, she would have, I believe, 170, right? Because I could self-imprint her here, right? And she would have, yeah, 150 plus 20, that's 170. But I actually prefer, because most of the time people aren't going to be trying to strip her or like debuff her. So I go for the attack imprint, make sure my team hits even harder, and yeah, just make sure we can get that cleave in. So that is going to be it for this video here, for this account overview. Thank you all so much for watching. I know we've been going on for quite a while. We have a lot more units than we used to, and there's just so much to cover. So with that being said, guys, thank you all so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like, subscribe for more Epic 7 content, and leave a comment down below. Let me know what I can do to improve. And until next time, take care.